The moment my dad said, "No deadbeats allowed at Christmas this year, so we're only having your sister and her family," I honestly thought I'd misheard him. I was standing in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the chipped mug in my hand like it might explain what the hell he'd just said. My own father had just uninvited me from Christmas and called me a deadbeat in the same breath. I remember my chest getting tight, that hot, dizzy feeling rushing up my neck, and the first thing that came out of my mouth wasn't calm or mature. It was just, "Are you serious right now?" So before I tell you how this blew up and what I ended up doing, tell me honestly, if your own parent chose your sibling over you and labeled you like that, would you just swallow it, or would you lose your mind too? I guess to make any of this make sense, I need to go back to the beginning, because this wasn't just about one Christmas dinner. This was years of resentment, favoritism, and me constantly feeling like I was running uphill while my sister was carried to the top. Growing up, there were two of us, me and my older sister, Laura. She's 3 years older, and from as early as I can remember, she was the golden child. Straight A's, cheerleader, married her high school sweetheart, had kids right on schedule. My parents loved to tell everyone how proud they were of her, how she did everything right. Me? I was the screw-up. Not in some dramatic criminal way, but I never fit into their neat little timeline. I struggled in school, bounced between majors in college, dropped out for a bit, worked random jobs, tried to figure out who I even was. Every mistake I made got magnified. Every success Laura had got framed and hung on the wall. Things really shifted after my divorce. I married young, mostly because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. It didn't work. We weren't happy, and when it ended, I lost a lot more than just a relationship. I lost stability, money, confidence. I moved into a small apartment, picked up extra shifts wherever I could, and yeah, I leaned on my parents more than I wanted to. I asked for help with rent one month. I borrowed my dad's car when mine broke down. It wasn't forever, but to them, it became a label. Irresponsible, unreliable. Meanwhile, Laura and her husband Mark bought a house, had 2 kids, and suddenly they were the model family my parents compared everything to. Every holiday started to feel like an audition I never passed. Christmas was the worst. Laura would show up with perfectly wrapped gifts, kids in matching outfits, stories about soccer practice and promotions. I'd show up tired, maybe a little quieter than usual. But I always brought gifts, always helped cook, always tried. Still, there were comments. My mom would ask loudly if I was seeing anyone yet or still at that same job. My dad would joke about me needing to get my life together, always with that laugh that told everyone, else it was a joke but told me it wasn't. Last year was rough. I lost my job when the company downsized. I didn't tell my parents right away because I knew exactly how that conversation would go. I scrambled, picked up freelance work, did deliveries at night, anything to keep my head above water. I was exhausted, stressed, and honestly embarrassed. Laura, of course, found out somehow. She always does. Next thing I know, my mom is calling me, voice dripping with concern that somehow still felt like judgment, asking why I hadn't told them. I told her I didn't want to worry them. She said, "We just don't want you ending up dependent on us forever." That word, dependent, stuck with me. So when December rolled around and I hadn't heard much about Christmas plans, I figured it would be the same as always. Awkward but tolerable. Then my dad called. No small talk. No "how are you?" Just straight into it. He said they'd decided to keep Christmas small this year. I said, "Okay, that's fine." Then he dropped it. "No deadbeats allowed at Christmas this year, so we're only having your sister and her family." I felt like the floor disappeared. I asked him what he meant by that. He sighed like I was the one being difficult, and said, "You're not exactly in a position to contribute, and we don't want any negativity around the kids." I didn't even know how to respond. I asked him if he seriously thought I was a deadbeat. He said, "I'm just being honest. Laura and Mark have worked hard. They deserve a peaceful holiday." Peaceful, as if my presence alone ruined things. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back, then immediately burst into tears like a kid. I'm not proud of that, but it hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't just being uninvited. It was being erased. For a few days, I didn't tell anyone. I replayed the conversation in my head over and over, wondering if I'd misunderstood, if maybe I was overreacting. Then my mom texted me, asking if I was okay with the plan. That's when it hit me that this wasn't just my dad. They'd both agreed. I replied that I wasn't okay, actually, and asked why they thought it was acceptable to exclude me. She responded with a long message about tough love, about how sometimes people need consequences to motivate them, consequences for being broke. I finally told a close friend what happened, and she was furious on my behalf. She said if her parents ever did that, she'd cut them off. I wasn't ready for that, but I also knew I couldn't just pretend this was fine. So I called Laura. I figured if anyone could talk some sense into them, it would be her. I told her what Dad said. She was quiet for a moment, then said, I get where they're coming from. That was like a punch to the gut. She went on to say that holidays were stressful enough. And maybe I should use this time to focus on myself. I asked her if she'd said anything to them about me. She hesitated, then admitted she'd mentioned being worried about me, not pulling my weight, and how awkward it was explaining my situation to her kids. That's when something in me snapped. All those years of comparison, all those subtle digs, suddenly made sense. I wasn't just failing on my own. I was being actively painted as the problem. So that was the situation I was in, sitting alone in my apartment, uninvited to my own family's Christmas, labeled a deadbeat by the people who raised me. Before I tell you what happened next, I really want you to pause for a second and think about it. If you were me, would you try to make peace, swallow your pride, and show up anyway? Or would you finally stand up for yourself, even if it meant blowing everything up? I decided I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to apologize for struggling. Instead, I sent a message to the family group chat. I kept it calm, even though my hands were shaking. I said I was hurt by the decision to exclude me, that I didn't appreciate being called a deadbeat, and that if I wasn't welcome as I was, then I'd take some space. I wished them a Merry Christmas and said I hoped they enjoyed it. Within minutes, my phone blew up. My mom called. My dad left a voicemail. Laura texted me privately saying I was being dramatic and making everything about me. I didn't respond right away. For the first time, I let myself sit with my anger instead of shoving it down. Christmas came and I spent it alone. I made myself a nice dinner, watched stupid movies, and cried more than I'd like to admit. But there was also this strange sense of relief. No walking on eggshells, no comparisons, just me. The fallout came after. My parents didn't expect me to actually stick to my word. A week later, my dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He said he was worried about me. I told him worry doesn't look like exclusion. We argued. He doubled down at first, saying he only wanted to motivate me. I asked him if calling his own child a deadbeat felt motivating. That finally shut him up. He admitted he'd gone too far. But he also said I needed to understand how embarrassing it was for them to explain my situation to others. That was it for me. I told him I wasn't a reflection of his parenting reputation. I was a person. Laura and I didn't speak for months. When we finally did, it was tense. She said she hadn't realized how hurtful her comments were. I told her that intention didn't erase impact. Things are still strained. As for my parents, we're in this awkward rebuilding phase. They've apologized, sort of. They don't use the word deadbeat anymore. Progress, I guess. Looking back, I don't regret standing up for myself. It cost me comfort and familiarity, but it also forced some long overdue conversations. I'm still working, still figuring my life out, but I'm doing it without constantly trying to earn a seat at a table that was never fully mine to begin with. So that's my story. Like this video if you think I was right to draw a line. Subscribe for more stories like this because trust me, life gets messy. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.